When you look at the miracle of feeding the 5,000, we kind of get a sense of what he's doing here. In Matthew chapter 14:19, he blessed and broke the loaves. And how many loaves did he have? In this story, he had 5. Okay? This week, Brooklyn and the kids, Brooklyn specifically wanted some French bread. Okay, so I went and bought a loaf of bread. And that loaf was good enough for about 4 people. Okay, so let's say you got 5 loaves. How many is that good for? 20 people. Okay, now we got 5,000 people, right? That's not going to feed 5,000 people. So Jesus, he gives the loaves to the disciples, and the disciples gave it to the multitudes. And so we see here a little bit of how God does things. The Great Commission, as it's called, go into all the world and make what? Disciples. We as Christians have a responsibility to make disciples. And it says, teaching them everything that I've commanded you. So when we get this bread, His teaching, His life, we've got to give it out as His disciples, as His people. We have to share it and give it out. Jesus uses you and me. Amen? That's His process. And it's very important that we understand that. We can't just drive by the world and just forget about them. We've got to reach the world as well. He blessed and broke it, gave the loaves to the disciples, and the disciples gave to the multitudes. And they ate and they were filled. So God took 5 loaves and He was able to feed 5,000. And the point is, even though Jesus is one man, and even though He died one time, there is enough of Jesus for all the people in our world today, 8 billion plus. There is enough of Jesus for all the people in the world that existed before our time. There is enough of Jesus to be distributed, to be broken up, for all of us to partake of. There is no limit. And even after they were done eating these, what were there? There were leftovers, remnants, baskets of leftovers left. They had 12 baskets. They started with 5 loaves. They had 12 baskets left over. But all I'm saying is there is enough of Jesus for the whole world and for all the people before our time. Jesus Christ is that powerful. He says of Himself that He is the bread of life. And His bread is no limit. His bread is not limited. His life, the food of Himself is not limited. It can sustain us. Your fathers ate of the manna in the wilderness and are dead. The religious people of the time were always looking at what God was doing in the past, what God did for them in the wilderness. And Jesus is saying, hey, I am that bread of life, and you don't care about what's happening right now. God is doing a new thing right now. I'm standing right in front of you. You guys ate the manna back there, but you won't eat of me today. You want to sit here and fight and reject me, the bread of life. This is the bread which comes down from heaven, that one may eat of it and not die. And He's talking about who? He's talking about Himself. This is the bread, pointing at Himself, which comes down from heaven, right? He came down from heaven, just like the manna came down from heaven. He came down from heaven, that one may eat of it and not die. The people in the past, in the wilderness, they waited 40 years, and all those 40 years they were eating the manna in the desert, right? But they died. And they died in their complaints. They died in their rejection of the promised land. They died. And Jesus is saying here, you don't have to die. If you partake of me, you can live forever. John chapter 6:38, I have come down from heaven not to do my own will, but the will of him who sent me. So Jesus is that manna. He is that bread of life. And he said it of himself, I have come down from heaven. And he has been sent. Just like the manna has been sent, he has been sent. Just like Moses was sent to deliver Israel out of Egypt, Jesus was sent to deliver us from our sin. It's all an illustration. God is he is repeating and he's reconfirming everything with all of these things that he did. Oh, did you not get it in this illustration? Oh, here's another illustration. Here's another illustration. Here's another. Do you get it yet? You read the story about Joseph. You read the story about Esther. You read the story about David. You read the story about. Do you get it? But they are illustrations of Jesus Christ and his coming. And that's why the Bible is so important. The Old Testament is so powerful, because when you ask God to open up it to you, you see that he used historical people. He used people's lives. He used events in history to foretell of what he wanted to do.